It's time to talk Gonzaga basketball.
Get ready.
It's the Spokesman-Review Zags Insiders Podcast.
Here we go.
Good Monday morning. Welcome back to Zags Basketball Insiders Podcast. I'm Jim Meehan, semi-retired with the Spokesman-Review. We've also got Richard Fox with us. He's the television analyst for Gonzaga basketball games on KHQ and SWX. So, Foxy, we got a lot of injury news to talk about, but you got to get something off your chest. Let's hear it, Denver Broncos fan.
Well, to give everybody some insight, you and I were chatting about. You're a Rams fan. I'm a Broncos fan.
We eked one out.
Yeah, I grew up in Denver, obviously, and could not have been more excited after the game. The family suffered through it and watched it with me. It was awesome. 20 minutes later or so, I'm on my phone trying to see, you want to, what do people say, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? Bo Nix broke his ankle? I saw him walk off the field, and I'm devastated, Jim. I'm absolutely devastated. We're playing the Patriots, and on the other side of the bracket are the Seahawks, and I can't suffer through another Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl in this town with the people that I know. So I'm really conflicted because it's been a great year for my Broncos, but we don't have a real chance of winning at all. Mm. I can't do 2 weeks. So I'm rooting for, I was rooting for your Rams last night. I'll be rooting for them next week. I wish you were playing before my team was playing, so I would know that outcome. But I don't know, man. That was at least you've got your quarterback who's playing. Put it that way.
Man, I'll tell you, watching those games is just like watching the baseball playoffs. It just puts you through every emotional state you can. You're just up, down, in between.
Well, no, are you a Dodgers fan? Are you a Dodgers fan?
Yeah, Dodgers and Rams. So, man, that seventh game in the playoffs was it shortened my life probably by 5 years. That was crazy. So, well, we'll see what happens. I think head on, straight up, if they had Nix, I think they win that game for sure. So maybe Stidham can pull it off and you can get it done.
That makes me feel so much better, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here to cheer you up, pal. So you might have heard the Zags ran into some injury roadblocks here.
Let's talk through that. Jeez.
Yeah, if you could think of two more important guys to get hurt, well, you can't. It was Graham Ike and Braden Huff. Now on the injury list for Gonzaga. That came during a week where, boy, it could have turned into a really bad week. It did on the injury list, but the Zags still won twice over pretty decent squads, middle-of-the-pack squads, I guess you'd call them in the WCC. Washington State and Seattle U win by 21. First game against Wazoo without Braden Huff, who has a knee injury, out for 4 to 8 weeks is the word. And then out against Seattle U was Graham Ike. He's got a right ankle injury. Not as serious. Sounds like it's been checked out, that it's not a long-term, let's put it that way, not a long-term, injury. But, he's going to miss some time. He missed one game. Interesting. We'll talk about it later, but Pepperdine playing Pepperdine on Wednesday. We'll see if he's out there for that. And then the schedule gets very interesting. It's San Francisco, St. Mary's the following Saturday. Those are the games that they could really use Graham Ike on the floor, and I would guess that's what they're targeting. But we'll get into all that. Let's catch up on where the Zags are. In the net, they are number 4. That's holding fairly steady. They were 9th in the AP poll. Foxy, if you see anything, let me know. I think they'll move up a spot or two. There was a lot of action last week. Not a ton of upsets, but Ken Pom, they're 6th overall, 8th in offensive efficiency, 9th in defensive efficiency. Kind of what we've been talking about all year. They can do it on either side of the ball some nights. And when they have both going, look out. The seeding that I've seen, a lot more brackets coming out now. People kind of wait to issue their first brackets through the non-con, you get a real feel for teams, who they've played and that. And then in the conference season, you really start to see how they match up with quality teams. Zags are more on the 3 line of late, dropped down a peg. But on bracket matrix, they're the 1st seed on the 3 line. That's the 9th overall. Lunardi still has them as the 8th overall seed. That's the last seed on the 2 line. So just something to watch. But if they keep stacking up wins, they've got some quad 1 and quad 2s coming here next week. Those will weigh heavily in their favor. But well, let's get to we got a lot to unpack here. The last thing we expected, they've been pretty injury free all year. I mean, Mario had the sickness that really stayed with him for a while, and you caught this. Graham had the ankle or foot or something going on in Vegas. Remember, he had the really tough game, and I didn't notice it, but I think you saw something maybe a game or two before that kind of hung with him. Obviously got through that eventually, but I think it was bothering him at the tail end of the Vegas tournament.
And I think he sat out of North Florida, was it? Or maybe it was Campbell. I can't remember.
There was a game in there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, what we saw this week, especially at Seattle U, with no front court tandem that scores it, I'd have to guess better than any front court tandem in the country. I mean, 36 a game, that's a ton of production.
Yeah, and efficient.
Yeah, efficient and almost 80-90% of it within 8-10 feet of the hoop, I'd guess, too. So they've really had to change the way they play. And some of these things we talked about at the start of the year in the first show. They have depth. They have kind of certain players that are offensive-minded, certain players that are defensive-minded. But that bench strength and that depth, which Mark has used all along, it has not been as tight a rotation as we've seen a lot of years. Now it is really being used, and it has to come through, because not only do you have to play different guys that haven't seen the minutes, they're playing in different situations. They're playing in high leverage and pressure situations, not just at the tail end of games. But when you take out EK and Huff, that interior duo, your paint buckets, I mean, they were off the charts for what they've done. You throw it into them, the plays develop from there, whether they create for themselves, whether they draw a double, whether they put foul pressure on somebody, the baskets, the kickouts, it kind of all revolved around that when they weren't getting out on the break and doing their usual stuff that way. But that's not how they're operating now. Ismaila Diane came in and started the other day, and he is way more impactful on the defensive end. And you saw that in his first half minutes. He swatted a shot right out of the gate. You saw guys go into the paint and kind of think, where is he? I better figure out if I can shoot this or not. But offensively, that's not his deal yet. It's he can do some lobs. He's getting better at that end, but the drop off there is obviously significant. So what you have is a bunch of you have a shorter lineup outside of Izzy's 7-footer, I guess. He's a 7-footer, but you've got a lot of 6'7" guys running around. You've got Worley and Fogel and TGF, Ty and Grant Foster. You've got Emmanuel. You've got Miller, 6'3", 6'5". You've got the 2 point guards. But they're playing different. They can't just throw it in and watch a play evolve. They've got to do some things on their own. You saw, Worley become kind of a point wing at times. You saw Fogel get the ball and I'm going to the rim, or I'm going to hit. Boy, he hit a beautiful pull-up fadeaway. Emmanuel was a little more offensive-minded. Miller had a great game against the Cougs. It's just a whole different style of play, especially at that end and the defensive end. How dramatic is it watching them now compared to what you saw before, the changes you're watching unfold out there?
Well, look, I mean, I think you're nailing it in that it's not just that you lost against WSU, you're without Huff. And I think that game's a bit easier to adjust to because you still have Graham, and you can now play through him, it's more exaggerated. In other words, it's not this tandem pairing up in the middle. You've got just Graham, but he's so good and effective, and he was really good against the Cougs. 23 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, really efficient, put a lot of foul pressure on WSU. So you're able to stay tethered to how it is you play throughout the year, but then you lose them for Seattle. And it's not just that you've lost that production, it's the way you play has to completely change. Deani's not a guy you throw it into. Even you have to be selective on when you dump it down to him and when you give it to him, because he doesn't have, the same level of touch and hands that Graham and Braden do. So I think you saw that a little bit in the first half against Seattle, where there was a bit of a feeling out. How do we want to play this?
Yeah.
But look, they still played 9 guys heavy minutes against Seattle. I mean, it's remarkable. I think it says a lot about the confidence they have in Vogel and Deani. I think it says a lot about their talent level. They're guys who can play at a decent level, if not a high level. And, Deani just 20 minutes, I believe, against the Red Hawks, but, efficient just with his size, 8 rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
He just eats up a lot of space. He's a good screener, a willing screener, which helps open, I think, a lot of those drives, particularly for Worley. Mm-hmm. Worley's very good at kind of snaking through the defense using that initial screen. I don't think this is they certainly don't want to live this way for a long period of time. I'll be very interested, Wednesday. They've got Pepperdine, who's not very good. Do they think to themselves, we probably have another, 24, 48 hours we can let Graham continue to recover, or do they play him for some stint? I don't know. But
yeah. The other interesting part of all that is they didn't have a chance to really prepare.
No.
The injury, I think, to Huff might have been the day before the Cougar game in practice. So you have a pretty quick, maybe a walkthrough or a film session, whatever, not very long to adjust everything. And Graham's ankles started acting up on the ride home and was swelling, and so. But you got to fly to Seattle, so they basically had a day. Maybe a day and a morning or 24 hours, let's say, to figure out, let's go play without a couple of All-Americans here. See how this, what are we going to try to adjust and fix and all those things. So they haven't had, that's why I think these next few days before Pepperdine, whether EK plays or not, is, at least they have a chance to kind of reset and figure out more in depth of what they want to do. But I think, and we've talked about this too, the end result was, especially against Seattle U, when I looked out there and Worley's guarding the center, the 6'10", 235 center. Dan. Steele was guarding him at times. Vogel's playing the 4. I don't believe he's played the 4 very often here. They're switching all over the place. And that was a little bit of a give and take. Teams have done that to them. They've gone smaller. We're going to drive EK. We're going to try to pull out Huff. Well, now they're the smaller, trying to man up against these bigger teams and our bigger front courts. And they're so quick-handed. They're so smart. Worley is smart. I mean, he got beasted a few times. I guess they still use the word beasted when getting posted up at Gonzaga.
You're still hip saying that. That's fine.
But how many times, man, his first half against Wazoo, he was the best player on the court and wasn't even close. And EK got to double figures, but what he did defensively, stripping, sagging, he knows how to do that stuff.
Jim, he's got 8 steals last 2 games.
Rebounding.
Yeah.
I mean, his field goals are just
10 of 18, 5 of 6 from the free throw line.
Yeah.
7 assists in the last 2 games.
They forced
2 blocks.
As a team, they forced a bunch of turnovers, and they could play differently. Their perimeter pressure was much more than they usually do, and they got their hand on the ball on the passing lane. They stripped posts. I mean, they gave up some inside buckets, but not a ton. And they won the glass.
Well, I was going to say plus 20 on a team in Seattle that out rebounded you by one on your home floor when you had both Huff and EK.
Yeah.
You're plus 7 on offensive rebounds. 15 turnovers. That's a bit of a high number for GU, but still, Seattle with 18 turnovers. Gonzaga's 22 points off those turnovers versus Seattle just 11. I thought Gonzaga did a really nice job of getting back on defense. And then the points in the paint, Gonzaga still plus 16 in that category, despite having, and I think
just
a lot of
ways.
I mean, a lot of that is they just with Grant Foster, with Worley, Vogel puts a lot of pressure on you with his dribble drive. Mario, his 3-point shooting, I think, is what eventually built that lead and kind of put the game away for him. But he puts a lot of dribble penetration pressure on teams, so they get into the paint. And then when you couple that with the ability to offensive rebound, I mean, 13 offensive rebounds. I think that was second chance points. Gonzaga 14. Yeah. So I mean, you're collecting those and going right back up typically. So, again, this is not the prospects for this group are very different if they don't have Huff and EK, but do they have the personnel to play in a competitive way, particularly in this conference with who they have? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just think, yes, they don't have the true front court size that you and I would look for, and certainly that they have with Huff and EK. But what they have is they have a lot of long, athletic kids that are smart, very active defensively. I mean, even Venters, who's last couple times out has seen his minutes come off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He's 6'7". I think he's a heady defender. But you throw in Vogel now if he's in the rotation. I mean, he's all a 6'8", 6'9". He's going a million miles an hour, but he's active, right? I mean, he's trying to come up with steals. Mario's very good at helping and recovering, and he's a vertical kid, so he can contest shots. I mean, so you line them all up. First 2 guys, maybe 3 guys for the other team are quite a bit bigger, but then you go down the rest of the roster, Gonzaga's got the advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just they can do it in a different way. I think their ability to put ball pressure, to get into passing lanes, they've got more quickness than you do.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. I could tell you as a big guy, I hated playing against those 6'7", 6'8" kids. And it's counterintuitive, but I want to have a big guy because I can feel I'm playing typically with my back to the basket.
Yeah.
I have a feel for where he is. I can spin off of that contact, that strength, try to create an advantage. When you've got a smaller guy, it's harder to know where they are. They've got a lower center of gravity. All of a sudden they're there, they're gone. So if you know how to play against the bigger kid as a Worley or Grant Foster, you can really muck it up for them. Because that's not something you see all the time. If you're Dan or whoever it might be, you're used to you're playing against the big guy. Yeah. And so I was really impressed with how they reacted to both the injuries. They didn't appear to be a group that felt sorry for themselves or panicked in any way. I think that's just a lot about the staff. And just the mentality that they have, which is very much like next man up. But again, they don't want to live this way for a prolonged period of time. Yes. So they need EK back no later than San Francisco. I know San Francisco's not had the year that we thought they would have, but they're well coached and they have some size up front. And they have some athletes on the perimeter that I think, can compare to Gonzaga's, maybe not the depth of those athletes, and you've got St. Mary's in, a couple weeks basically. So, but I think they can weather the storm a little bit longer against Pepperdine. And, the question is going to be, when does Huff come back? And then when he does come back, how does he feel on the knee? That's something we just don't know.
Well, it's just going to look different. It looks so much different. You get used to that inside out and that post feed, 80% of the time down the floor. That's just not how it's going to be for a while, but it's so much different on the defensive end. They created what did the Fogel or Worley called it? Chaos. They were trying to create chaos out there because they're quick-handed. pretty mobile, pretty athletic, and they use those things. They use those things. So let's get to a quick recap of the Wazoo game. We'll hit Seattle U, and then we'll look to next week.
Sure.
That first uppercut, no Huff. He was on crutches down in Pullman on the sideline. He didn't go to Seattle U. I assume they don't want him on a plane.
Right.
Sometimes that bugs the swelling. I assume they need 24/7 on the training table and the recovery. 4 to 8 weeks. I don't know what that means in terms of what he did to his knee, but my best guess is probably meniscus. That seems to always be in the 4 to 6 range. That's a guess. I don't know. At least it's not an ACL, which would be season ending. And I guess bone bruise could be one of those, but I don't know. Seems usually meniscus falls in that range. We'll see what it ends up being, but that could put him out basically to the end of the, he could come back for the St. Mary's game is, I believe, the end of February, last regular season game. That would time out at about 5 weeks. Maybe that's what they're shooting for, that one. And I think before that, they've got that road trip middle of February-ish to Santa Clara, San Fran. That's probably a little optimistic. And then 8 weeks, you're worrying about the NCAA tournament. So we'll see when he comes back. But they go without him against Wazoo. They put Worley into the starting lineup. And like I mentioned, his stat line for the first 10, 12 minutes of that game was just insane. He was leading in every category of everybody on each team. And I think EK did get going as the half wore on. We've seen a little bit from him, a little bit of a slow start, and then he gets going. And the offense really did run through him a lot, too. He had 5 assists. Surprising to me, they crushed the Cougs on the glass without a ton of size. But I don't think Wazoo's sporting a ton of size either. They got Okafor into foul trouble.
Yeah.
And he missed a lot of time. And I think after how Seattle U got him on the glass, how they've had a couple of games where teams have got him on the offensive glass, I think that has been driven home in the practice court. And you saw some of the results of that in these 2 games. About the only thing they didn't do was cover the 3 ball. And Wazoo lit them up, I think 13 threes, 13 of 28. But you take it as a whole, they scored 65 points. Seattle U scores 50 points. I mean, they're not a great offensive team, but they're not a 50-point team either. What did you see against the Cougs? Because I thought other than the 3-point defense, which, some of those were bombs. I mean, they were deep ones. What did you see and how the Zags controlled things through that game?
Well, it's interesting you talk about the rebounding since losing, being out rebounded by 1 at home against Seattle. There's plus 13, plus 4 against Santa Clara. The last couple games, plus 14 against WSU and plus 20 against Seattle U. So, I mean, this is part of the profile of this group that I think you and I believe is going to help them make a deep run, is that the rebounding, ability to rebound, but also their ability to defend. And they've really responded in a nice way to the glass. Look, I mean, WSU had a kind of a bit of an out-of-body experience in the first half. 8 of 15 from the 3-point line. Hildebrandt was 3 of 4, Glass 3 of 7. They hit some really tough ones, quick ones too. It didn't feel like they could sustain that. To me, anyway. Gonzaga just 3 of 9 from the 3-point line, but 53% from the field. In the second half, you saw WSU's 3-point percentage and field percentage kind of come back down to earth. 33% from the field and 5 of 13 from 3, while Gonzaga kind of just stayed steady. 3 of 9 in the first half, 3 of 7 in the second half from 3, really doing their damage, inside the 3-point line. EK was typical EK. I mean, just exceptional. First half, 10 points, 5 of 8 from the field, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Second half, 13 points, even better, 6 of 7 from the field, 7 rebounds and 3 assists. Just kind of the son that everybody was playing around, right? I mean, he just was that dominant. With Okafor having that foul trouble, really the only guy who has the size to bother Graham and compete with him around the basket. Only played 10 minutes in the first half. I think that was a big turning point. Even though WSU kept the game competitive, that 10 minutes with Okafor out, I mean, it helped Gonzaga build that little bit of a lead in the first half. It was Worley in the first half. He had 3 steals, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and he just kind of does it all. Yeah. And then Miller got going in the second half, 2 of 4 from 3, 8 points in 14 minutes. I think that's a trend we're seeing a little bit. I do think I think Worley's becoming indispensable to Mark in that he can just do so many things that I think he's reaching the Graham level of indispensable guy. I think he is carved out as we always talk about. It's anybody's night. I think with Worley, I don't care what his scoring is. I have to have him on the floor. Yeah. And I think Graham is very much that way. I mean, they'll even sometimes, I think, with Braden, depending on how he's playing or matchups, you'll see Braden's minutes come down.
Yeah.
I think Worley cemented himself. He has to have cemented himself as a guy that has to be on the floor. And you saw that in that first half and obviously throughout the last couple of games.
It's what it reminds me of. And Mark has used this term before with Killian Tilly, with Anton Watson. He just fixes. He's a fixer. He fixes things. He can bring the ball up against pressure. He's almost always in the right spot on defense. He can guard this guy or that guy or a 7-footer, the point guard. And Worley told me after the game, I said, what was it like guarding Dan inside? I mean, that's a big kid and pretty talented. He played well at the panel. And he said, it's not really that new to me. At Florida State, we did that all the time. He switched and covered him big in the ACC. So he just has that the smarts, the feel, much like Tilly and Watson, different sizes and that. But he fixes things. The turnovers don't go up when he comes in. The offense runs smooth still. Anyway, he had a nice week, and they're going to really need him coming with these games coming up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with all that. The other thing that, as you're talking, that came to mind is I look at like the conversion rate on things like turnovers and offensive rebounds. Right, because that's if I get a steal or create a live ball turnover, however I would do that, that's a win. But can I double down on that by converting that turnover to points on the other end or free throws on the other end? Same thing with offensive rebounds. Yes, I'm extending my offensive possession and forcing the defense to play a bit longer. But do I get anything out of that offensive rebound, right? Because we see that all the time where teams might have a really good day on the glass, double-digit offensive rebounds, but they've got 6 second chance points. Yeah. So while that's a positive, it's not as painful for the team you're playing. I mean, you look at against WSU, WSU has 17 turnovers. Gonzaga, let me make sure this is the whole game. Yeah, Gonzaga has 27 points off of those turnovers.
Yeah,
they made
those
that hurt.
Easier points. Those are not stressful ones.
That's painful for the opponent. Gonzaga's 17 offensive rebounds. They had 19 second chance points, so better than a point a rebound,
which is huge,
right? So they're making it hurt. Yeah. And those offensive rebounds and second chance points, so many of those are going to be around the basket. I mean, you don't have Huff. You're plus 40 in points in the paint, 52-12. Yeah. Just a really impressive performance without Huff. And I just think they're very good at converting and doubling down on these small things. Mm. And Worley, he's so good defensively. But when anybody gets a steal, if you have a live ball turnover against Gonzaga, they're going to make you pay.
I was just going to say that because now, and again, they want Huff and Ike. We're not making this more than it is. Mm-hmm. But they're not on the floor, and they run the break fine. Don't get me wrong, but when you're running the break with TGF and Worley and Emmanuel and Miller and Mario or whoever, I mean, that is speed. That's a relay team going up and down.
There's a real validity to the idea that if you know, we think about getting out in transition, and everything you hear is push the ball up the floor, like pass it, and that's true. But the delay in transition, the time the defense can get back if they're disciplined, is from the rebound turnover moment to the outlet.
Yeah.
When you're this small, whoever gets the rebound or turnover can just start bringing it up themselves. There's that delay doesn't happen, right? So another way to think about it is Huff gets the steal on the baseline. He holds it and he looks for the outlet, and that might take 1 to 2 seconds. Well, I mean, these are pretty good athletes. They're back. But if Worley gets the steal on the baseline and puts his head down and he is gone, now we're all running together. And I can and now we're probably ahead of Dan, Maurer, 1 or 2 guys from Seattle. So we've got numbers immediately. Yeah. And I think that's real powerful. And when you go, that's a way you can spin whatever disadvantage you might have in just overall size by leveraging your quickness and that conversion rate from one end of the floor to the other. And I thought it was really impressive against Seattle. Look, we'll talk about Seattle. It wasn't as if they got out of the gate on fire. And I think we could talk about why. But once they found their stride, you saw that. And you saw that against WSU certainly too. I mean, Worley was a big part of that, but they are so good about just going from one end to the other.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to Seattle U. And I watched the football playoff game at a kind of a diner a few blocks away from the game to get down there early with all the traffic. The Seahawks game was at 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I got down there early and I settled in and watched. And so I went overtime. And so I was a little later to climate pledge than I probably would have wanted, 15, 20 minutes. I walk in. First thing I see is EK in a walking boot. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, Huff is a gut punch, and then EK is the roundhouse, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, the uppercut.
What is happening here? And I'm trying to think if they've ever had anything comparable with the 2 key figures. Shemek had
but he missed the year,
he missed the year. He played 3 or 4 games, but he was hurt. Obviously Anton had the shoulder, but that was when he was a freshman. He was pretty healthy his other years. Just littler things here and there. A guy missed a week or 2 games. Jalen Suggs missed a week or something, but I can't remember having the 2 guys go down. I mean, that's Domus and Welcher. That's that's Gispert and Timmy, and then those guys were almost always relatively healthy. I can't remember really being down 2 horses, and it may just be a couple of games. So let's be careful how we don't want to overstate it, because I don't think EK is going to be long for the bench here. But anyway, so I see that. I'm thinking, man, Seattle U is going to be out of their mind. They're going to see it in warm-ups. I mean, he was out there. He was throwing passes, and he did. I'm telling you, the dynamic they have, and part of it's his leadership. Right before tip-off, I watched because I knew he was going to get Deane off to the side and say, hey, do the, get into him and tell him you can do this, and he did. And he's in there in warm-ups. He's in there on the bench yelling stuff out. He's in the huddle talking to guys. Very active. All those vibes, I think, are pretty important, how they get along and how they kind of pull in the same direction. But I'm waiting for Seattle U. Seattle U comes out. I'm like, okay, where's the juice here? Where's the energy? Because Deane isn't playing, most of the season. He is a live wire during warm-ups. You watch him, you hear him. You hear him in the hallway from the media room when they come out. And Graham's the same way, just very loud and into it. There wasn't much of that from Seattle U. I was a little surprised at that. We had him beat at the kennel. they're coming to our building. They're down 2 guys who probably are going to be on some All-American teams. You'd think they'd be just totally amped up, and I didn't see it. And I mentioned that to somebody. I said, just watch them. Are you seeing a team that's just like, can't wait to play here?
Right.
And I didn't see it. So that was kind of the first indication that maybe, they just weren't, I don't know. I just didn't get the vibe that they would be as, I thought they'd be out of their mind waiting for that game. And it just didn't feel like that. But game starts, you can kind of tell how different it's going to be with the Zags. The offense is not going to look the same, and the points are going to be harder to score. It's going to be, especially in the half court. Now if they can get you on the glass or they can get out in transition, that's different. But when it's our 5, your 5, and we got 30 seconds here to try to put together a play, it's going to look a lot different. And so they didn't ring it up really at that end of the floor. But I thought defensively, almost from the jump, they kind of more than held their own and were the reason they were leading. And then you kind of had this scoring by committee, which you're going to see as well, because they might have a guy get to 20. Mario did the other day.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have a lot of guys with 6 and 4 and 9 and 11. That's going to be the mode here going forward. But very impressed with what Fogel did. How Worley was more into creating for a lot of that game and generating for other guys. Mario did the same thing. I think Braden Smith, had 4 assists in that game as well. No, that wasn't Braden. That was
Worley had 4.
Yeah, Worley.
And then Mario had 4 as well.
Yeah, so the assist numbers went down a little, which, the assists, when those point guards are racking them up, dumping them into the post, probably going to drop a little. So that part changed, but the trade-off was their defense mitigated the struggles offensively. It kept that they were in the lead. They kind of held the lead throughout, and I didn't think Seattle U got some inside buckets, but not as many as you would think. They didn't dominate the glass the way you might think. That Heimbrodt kid he's a nice player. Again, he struggled against Gonzaga.
I don't get it at all.
I watch it, I'm going,
he's 1 of 10.
That kid can play. What is happening here? So you have to give them credit. They've done some things. They bothered Maldonado. Obviously, they're bothering Heimbrodt. But that defense to allow 50 points without their 2 starting forwards, and the way they scored it was different. There was mid-range, there was floaters, there was 3 or 4 lobs that we saw out there.
Yeah.
I think Mario and Fogel probably hit 4 or 5, and Worley in that 8 to 12 foot range, pull-ups, elbows, maybe. No, we don't have to get all the way to the rim because, I'm 6'3", and there's 2 7-footers or a 6'10" guy waiting. It looked different, but that defense gave them a chance throughout. Why were they so good? Why were they so effective, I should say, on that side of the ball?
Well, to go back to what you were saying, I called the game up here with Seattle. Seattle gave Gonzaga all they could handle, and they were really good defensively. I thought they mixed it up. They played really hard. Didn't get, there were no students here, but they never got overwhelmed with playing Gonzaga up here. They did feel flat to me, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Just that's a real opportunity for Seattle U. I know Gonzaga's down 2 guys, but that's a quad 1 win, top 10 team on your home floor. In 5 years, no one's talking about who was playing. That's going to be a pretty cool moment.
Especially how the other game went, the first game.
I think it's hard. They're 4 and there were 3. They lost. I just had it up. What they do?
They had some struggles in there since.
Yeah, I don't have it up anymore, but I think they lost 3 in a row, including the Gonzaga, beat San Diego the other night, and then obviously lost to GU. So, look, what I thought was impressive was you go into that game understanding you're without Huff and EK, and what I'm worried about is the approach for GU. Where are they with their headspace? Are they down? Are they feeling sorry for themselves? And there was none of that, and but to your point about Graham, that's a great bit, that's great insight, because he could easily be also down and inward looking and thinking, this sucks. I want to be playing. What is this going to do? Instead, there's that high energy trying to get everybody going. I just think they have a really good approach, very much a next man up. This is a mature group for the most part, outside of Mario and Vogel. I mean, Deani's been here for a while too.
Yeah.
I mean, and Mario's played at a super high level. So, I mean, there's very much a professional, I think, approach to this, which is, if we're down a guy or two, then we just all have to do more. And we've got a lot of confidence we can do it. I mean, they still played 9 guys in the rotation despite having 2 guys out. I mean, it wasn't like Deani played 12. Yeah, 12. It's not like Deani played 12 minutes. They had no faith in him. He played 20 minutes. Yeah. Vogel plays, 24 minutes. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a slow start, I think. And that's the thing. You made the comment earlier about having this week to adjust if they have to play against Pepperdine without Graham. And they're going to have to make adjustments for the rest of the league play with just Graham. I mean, that's not incredibly difficult to do, but it's certainly, they're used to having both Huff and EK together. They have structured everything with that idea. So there's an adjustment that has to be made. They didn't have any time to do that. I wasn't surprised to see the first half. I mean, production be pretty low. I mean, even the start of the second half. I mean, I don't think anybody scored until just over 16 minutes. I mean, almost 4 minutes had gone by.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
But when you guard the way that they can guard, and they build a little bit of a lead going in the halftime, and then it just takes a guy, and it was Mario. I mean, Mario hit 4 out of 6 threes, but 3 of those in pretty quick succession in the second half, just to build that lead. And then I think they were off and running. But to hold Seattle U, who doesn't have any injury problems on their, in their pseudo home arena, to 50 points is pretty impressive in my view.
Yeah.
You might expect to see the 3-point shooting jump up considerably, given you don't have Graham or Huff. You didn't see that. Only 18 threes attempted.
Yeah.
I think they're very disciplined now, understanding, what are the right threes to shoot and who should be shooting those threes. And Grant Foster doesn't take a 3. I think if you and I had been talking before the game that Huff's also out, I think we probably would have thought, well, Foster's going to be real aggressive, and you might see him jack up 3, 4, 5 of those. Didn't do it.
He was the lob man. He got 2 or 3 lobs in there.
Yeah, but just 9 rebounds. And to your point, it's only 3 guys score double digits against Seattle U, just 3 guys against WSU. That is not the program here. It's not like what we were used to seeing, which is 4, maybe 5 guys in double digits, and then a massive drop-off in offensive production. This is very much, this is spread out across the roster. Yeah. And you don't necessarily know night in and night out who's going to get it going. And, it's you let Vogel loose, you let him out of the crate, and here he is running around just making plays. I mean, he took some tough ones, but they opened up the offensive glass. I think Grant Foster had a putback. Worley had a putback. But he put so much pressure on you defensively. I thought he was really good. He looks like he looked as if he'd been playing in the rotation all year. Yeah. So I don't know, man. It was not the prettiest game they played. Only 71 points. I don't have this thesis on why I was so impressed by it necessarily, but I was really impressed with how they pulled that one out. And, sometimes when you have these types of situations where there's injuries or some sort of disruption, it's an opportunity to not only see what else you have, but it may open up your perspective on different players or how we can play depending on the moment. I have more confidence now if we play a team that is smaller, but say a high major. They just have one big, but they're very quick and blah, 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 blah. I might feel like we can do that. We've been forced to do it over the course of the year. I've got faith in a guy like Vogel I didn't have before. So you can do these can be opportunities. These can be eye-opening stretches where your perception of your group changes, and that might be something that happens because they're going to be forced to play small here down the stretch.
And could in the long run, if guys develop, Fogel,
Yeah,
Izzy, whoever develops in this stretch, that could pay off real big when you've got everybody back together. I mean, you see that in baseball a lot. Guy misses, somebody comes in, gets the job done. When the other guy comes back, they're even that much better
right.
because somebody's developed during that time. Worley said it pretty well.
He's a good quote, isn't he?
He's very him and Miller are sharp. I mean, they are students of the game. They understand the game. You can see it. But he said something about, well, we go against Fogel in practice every day. We know he can play. We know he can score. Mark talked about Huff and Ike got to go against Izzy in practice, and he's no fun to go against. He's not little. He's a pretty stout 7-footer and pretty good timing to block shots. They know he can play, especially defensively. So these guys they're turning to are not are guys that without a little bit of accomplishment, and they've seen it firsthand throughout practices. So it's just going to be interesting because and they do the small ball a lot anyway. I mean, when they had the two bigs, one of them came out at the first media almost all the time. Worley went in. Worley would play. He'd stay in. The other big would come in, and the other big would go out at the next media or 10 minutes or whatever it is. So they did the 6-8 minute shifts without the two bigs together. But when it's on, they're on the court.
Right, but
but they do have some experience with this,
and that's what's tough, right? I mean, that's the hammers when both Ike and Huff are out there.
Yeah,
I mean that's when you go from being a very good team to maybe a great team, is that because that's unique. I mean, you just don't see a lot of teams. I mean, Arizona does it. I mean, they will go really big, and there are other teams in the country that will go big, but generally speaking, you've got the one big, and maybe you've got a long kind of lanky or athletic four that doesn't really play around the basket, right? I mean, so, but yeah, you're right. I mean, that's when Ike comes back. I don't think the adjustment is as dramatic as it might have been. But it's an adjustment. I mean, they're not going to play Deani and Graham together. I don't think. No. I think I'd be really surprised by that. So you're going to have this one big look here for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah. All right. We'll do a quick thought on Pep, San Francisco, and we'll get out of here. The Waves got their first win the other night. They beat Portland. So they've got one conference win. It's been a tough season down there for Pepperdine. Zags kind of took them apart in Malibu, 196-56, something like that. And a lot of their losses are in that 20-point range or more. So we'll see. I'm guessing no Ike, even if he probably, if that jersey read St. Mary's, I think he'd be out there. If that jersey read even Santa Clara or USF, he'd probably maybe be more inclined to play. But I'm guessing you can get him another 2 days, 3 days off. Let's do it. Well, we'll talk about San Fran in a minute. Then it's another tough call for that game. But I'm guessing no Ike. So what they've got to deal with is a team that has 3 or 4 guys in the 10 to 12 point range, mostly guards, one big. I think the foreign kid's right around 11 points. Didn't have much trouble with them in Malibu. Circumstances are a lot different. How does this game go Wednesday night? Who knows?
Well, I can't imagine. I'm calling it. man,
They're going to look so much different.
Pepperdine's not very good. Gonzaga will be fine. I mean, I just don't know how. I'd rather talk about San Francisco, to be honest with you, Jim.
No, we'll go to it.
Yeah, like I just think, Pepperdine, they've got. I don't have anything to add other than I think that's going to be a blowout. Okay.
No,
sorry.
I think I
wish I had more insightful, but I just don't see. They don't have the horsepower. They don't have. Look, if Graham doesn't play, they're going to have a size advantage inside, certainly, but they don't have those guys are not skilled enough or dominant enough where it's going to make a difference, in my view.
Yeah.
And the students will be back. I got to think they're going to be awfully enthusiastic to try to lift this group up with the injuries that they've had. So I don't expect it to be much of a contest.
I don't think it'll be a cakewalk, only in that Gonzaga's not going to score 90, 95 every time out.
Let's make a bet. Over under 85.
Zags score over.
Yeah.
I'm going to go under 85.
I'm going to go over.
Okay. All right. Well,
and I don't know what we're betting. I'll buy you dinner in the media room.
I like that.
Probably a sandwich.
That's pretty good luck. I wish I'd have used that. You're on. The bet is on. All right, San Francisco. Now, this is going to be a little more interesting.
I agree.
And you're in that same thinking. Do we want to try to give Graham another? Because that would turn out to be a full week. That's a Saturday game against the Dons. And then the Gales are the following Saturday. I don't think they have a game in between.
They don't.
So then you're talking from – that's almost 2+ weeks, 2.5 plus – time off for him to get his ankle healthy. That looks a lot better than 8 days or 9 days or something. So that'll be that could be interesting to see if he comes back for this one or not. Or do you hold him for the Gales? But the Dons have some guys. Their personnel is good. We've talked about this. I kind of thought they would really battle for second place in the league. 5-3. St. Mary's handled them. They made a comeback, but they lost on their home floor to St. Mary's. And it's tough to figure out. Their stats all look good. They shoot it pretty good. Their defense is pretty good. Their rebounding numbers are solid. But they've had a few head-scratching losses to me. They've got Beasley in the backcourt. They did lose Cook. I think he's an Oregon transfer. Maybe he hasn't played in maybe a month or not quite a month. So I don't know his.
So it's out of the year, yeah.
But they've got Riley. I think it's David Fuchs is how it's pronounced. It's really I think he's a foreign kid, but he's a nice player too. They have some personnel, guys the Zags have seen. So I thought they'd be better. They haven't quite put it all together, but I think they have the pieces too, especially if Cook comes back. But it hasn't materialized. With that matchup, what do you make of how that one sizes up?
Well, I watched their game against St. Mary's, or a large chunk of it, and they lost one down the stretch at home. It feels like a group that can't put it together for 40 minutes. But when they're right, I mean, they're very well organized. And when I say organized, it's another way of saying just very well coached. And when they're executing the game plan, they're difficult. I mean, they can create good shots on the offensive end. Defensively, when they're disciplined, they've got some length and they can make your life difficult. Beasley's a guy Gonzaga fans obviously are going to know really, really well. Undersized, kind of jitterbug guard who can really score it. Averaging 14 points a game. His 3-point shooting is not great at 31%. But he does a little bit of everything. He rebounds it at a pretty high level for a guy his size. He's a decent playmaker. They play 9 guys. I mean, the lowest they were playing 9 guys before Cook got hurt. Diaz Graham, I think, is a transfer from Pitt or somewhere like that, is averaging 16.7. He's the lowest points per minute. So I mean, they have good size up front with Fuchs, who's from Austria, Diaz Graham. Wang is an interesting player,
Good
kind of a
play.
four, but he can step it out and shoot it. Shoots at about 39% from the field. Riley's a really nice looking player. He was a freshman last year, long, maybe not the same level of athlete as some of Gonzaga's guys, but pretty good in his own right.
Yeah.
They've got Legend Smiley's a freshman out of the West Side. He's been good for them. So they, if they had Cook, now with Smiley, Cook, and Riley, they've got three guys between 6'5", 6'7", who are good athletes that can play on the wing. That's kind of, I think, what you and I thought they were interesting is St. Mary's has the front court when Gonzaga has both Huff and Ike to play with Gonzaga's, against Gonzaga's size. And because they have that size, if you remember last year, they really weren't forced to double. At least certainly not consistently, because they had Saxon and their other kids up front.
Yeah.
I thought San Francisco would be the inverse, where they have the perimeter length to play with GU on the outside and maybe do some things interestingly defensively. So these are the games that would make me nervous, in that you've got to think at some point San Francisco is going to figure it out and put it together for 40 minutes, and they just have not been able to do that. Yeah. So look, they're well organized. They're going to have a very good game plan. It's going to be easier with Huff out. Yeah. They're not going to have to worry about both bigs. I'd expect they're going to give Graham a lot of different looks with doubles. He's going to have to be really good reading those and playing off of those. I would expect this team, San Francisco, to really be dramatic in how they play off of certain guys for Gonzaga on the perimeter, Worley, Grant Foster in particular. So I think it's one of those games where you're going to have to be focused. You're going to have to make adjustments in game, halftime. I'll be interested to see the pace of play. This is not a San Francisco team that, they only average about 75, 76 points per game on the year. That's not St. Mary's slow, but they don't necessarily want to play fast. Who can dictate that? We just talked about how good Gonzaga is in that conversion from one end to the other defensively off those turnovers or rebounds. I'd expect San Francisco really to try to make an effort to get back. I'm excited for it. Gonzaga might beat them by 30. I don't know. But I certainly, when I look at this league, I would put them on the list of teams on the right night that have a chance to knock off GU. And with Gonzaga now, presumably, certainly with Huff out, but maybe even Ike, they've got a better chance to make it a game. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Well, without those bigs, short term here, obviously Diane becomes a very important player. They got to keep him out of foul trouble. He got 3 fouls real quick in the second half the other night, went to the bench. They need him. They need him to at least defensively and for minutes. I think the other guys who come really important are Mario, TGF, Worley's obviously indispensable. And maybe Steele even in there.
Yeah.
Vogel especially. They need some offensive-minded guys, and those are offensive-minded guys to come through, because that part of the game is going to be a little more of a chore if teams aren't turning it over.
Yeah, look, I mean, if I knew anything about basketball and I had decent personnel, I would do everything I could to force Gonzaga to beat me from three. And I'd probably still lose, but I'd want to force Gonzaga to settle for some threes. They've been so disciplined. I think I want to say it was a Seattle game, or maybe it was the Santa Clara game, where they came out and shot 4 or 5 threes before the first media timeout. But they've really been good about just turning down decent looks for three, just keep moving the ball and try to find something at the rim. I would really work to try to force them to shoot it from three. And if that's the game plan, guys like Steele and Miller, and I think Vogel and Mario need to knock some of those down.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'll be a real chess match. I really do. I think it'll
Yeah.
it'll certainly be a game worth watching, and I think I might go to that one. So just as a fan, that'll be fun.
Interesting week ahead. Interesting weeks and months ahead now with what Gonzaga is dealing with. I believe the Zags are 8th in the poll, if I can read my screen right. Looks like it. Moved up one spot to number 8 in the AP poll. Well, that's going to do it for today. We're with you every Monday, so come check us out. Zags Basketball Insiders Podcast. Search on YouTube. You'll find it. I will post this on our website, the Spokesman-Review website, spokesman.com. And come back next week. We'll talk about all of it again. Thanks for joining us.